Welcome to episode 3 in our Success in the Field series. I'm Jason.
And I'm Jack.
This week, we'll be talking about scheduling, where we've seen it come from, where it is now, and where we think it's going in the future. We'll be talking about some of the pitfalls that we see clients have associated with scheduling and looking at how businesses can overcome them.
As you can see, Jason and I are working from home today, and I'm sure along with a lot of our clients and people across the country. This is going to bring a number of further challenges when it comes to scheduling that I'm sure we're going to touch on today.
We'll first look at and talk about where scheduling came from. So sort of rewind 15 years ago when I started dealing with clients on a more regular basis, we saw scheduling really wasn't something most businesses considered. It was done on paper, it was done on paper diaries, it was done on whiteboards. Most businesses hadn't even really got to the point where they were using sort of simple tools like Google Calendars or Outlook. And I think over the years, especially with the adoption of smartphones, we've seen businesses use more sophisticated tools, booking in appointments, having that sent through to their, through to their iPhones and their Android phones. And that predominantly was fueled by how good and how cheap these devices then got. Back in the day when you were buying sort of Windows devices and they were, £700, £900 a device, compared to now, you can buy an Android device, for a reasonably cheap price. So Jack, you obviously talk to clients a lot, especially those clients that haven't really got systems in place. What are you seeing in terms of these types of businesses, and what do they have now, and what are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, good question. I think interestingly, you mentioned in the past companies were using whiteboards and so on. We still see that today. Companies still using whiteboards, companies still using paper diaries and paper pads when it comes to scheduling. I think obviously now with the the invention of Google Calendars, Outlook calendars, iCal as well, the Apple version of it, people have sort of migrated a lot more into that. Now the big benefit I think they see for those types of scheduling or calendars is that it's all interactive. Everyone can see the same thing, everyone can move things around, everyone can add to it, everyone can delete, which in actual fact is also the massive disadvantage of it, is that everyone can view it, everyone can delete stuff, everyone can move things around. So, if you've got a company of 10, 15, 20 people and every engineer has access to the same calendar, people could move things around that aren't theirs, people could delete jobs or delete events without letting customers know. And then customers don't have a job, and then they, their experience obviously turns negative. I guess if we want to talk about some of the problems or issues that people have around scheduling during the day, what would you say some of the key things are?
I mean, ultimately, every best laid plan in a schedule is going to go wrong at some point. If you've got enough people doing enough jobs, at least something is going to happen. Whether it's a customer cancelling the same day, whether it's an engineer's van breaking down, an engineer's running sick, it could be no access events. And obviously we've got a whole load of data around no access information. I think these interruptions during the day are kind of what makes scheduling quite complicated, especially when you're doing reaction-based scheduling and not plan-based. I think if we look at tomorrow's appointments, and that looks wonderful, it's all planned out, the problems are going to be that if something gets cancelled today and they want to move it to tomorrow, that obviously then affects tomorrow's schedule. So I think that becomes a bit of a rolling cycle, and that's why you get really good scheduling people get really good at moving appointments around. And I had an interesting conversation with a business the other day because we saw some very strange behavior in some of their appointments, and they were moving them like 70 times, which to us seemed completely crazy. But for them, it was this constant balance between optimized schedules and the daily needs of the business in terms of things being moved and cancelled and rearranged. So I think what's really interesting is how transparency in scheduling has become more and more important to businesses. Sort of, Jack, what do you think, and how have you seen when you're talking to clients, different businesses react to this?
I think transparency comes down to two things. I think what what you show your customers is one thing, or what you tell your customers is one thing, but then also what responsibility you give your customers is the other thing. So in terms of what you show them, being transparent about a service window, what time of the day do you expect to arrive? Is it the morning? Is it the afternoon? Can you get even more specific? Is it between 8 and 11 or between 8 and 10? I think that is really, really key. And I don't think a lot of companies necessarily split it down to more specific than morning or afternoon or AM and PM. I think other things tie in terms of visibility, showing customers or reminding customers the night before or the morning of or 2 days before the job, just so they have a chance to think, oh, actually something's come up, let me get in touch with the company to try and rearrange it a little bit more than 10 minutes before the job is meant to take place. The other side of it, like I said, is giving the responsibility to the customers, which is a whole other sort of kettle of fish. I think you've got, links that you could send them that say, your service is coming up, please click here to find the best time. The big limitation of that is that customers don't really care, if you've got someone in the area that day, or if you've got someone who's going to be in the area next week. They don't want it next week, they want it now, right here, right now. So they're going to pick the soonest time, which could throw the rest of your schedule out of whack. So I think there's, transparency is really key. And I think it's really easy to give visibility to customers, showing them expectations of arrivals and letting them know when you're on the way to help reduce those no accesses. I think giving the responsibility to customers is a different board game, and something that we might see coming in the future a little bit more.
To get further insights into how scheduling is changing, I'd like to introduce Ray from Scheduling Engine. Ray, let us know a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jason. So a little bit about myself and a background. Started in the industry on the manufacturer side, actually, on the OEM, went to work for a contractor, and ultimately was fortunate to have been part of the founding team of Schedule Engine, which is the technology company specifically for contractors, helping companies offer modern online booking experiences to their customers. Currently head of sales, wear a few different hats like many of us do, but really excited to be here today and share a little bit of insight on what we're hearing from contractors and where we see online scheduling going in the near future.
Yeah, perfect. So, we were having a conversation with Jack, our head of sales, as part of this episode, as part of the kind of interviews that we've been doing here. And one of the points that we were discussing and talking about was how we felt scheduling has changed over the last few years. I'd love to get your insights.
Great question. So when I think about how scheduling has changed over the past couple of years, the first thing I like to emphasize is in our industry, generally speaking, the scheduling process isn't wildly different than the way it was 10 to 15 years ago. The biggest thing that's changed in our industry, as any customer in all industries, that first touch point of where they're finding businesses is typically online. So as service contractors, we need to make sure if customers are coming to our website, our Facebook page, social media, we need to offer them modern online booking solutions, however they're finding us today.
What would you say are the key pain points in the field service business when it comes to scheduling? What kind of, areas, whether they've got systems like ours in play, or even, if they don't have those systems, what are the kind of key pain points do you think that exist now? And ultimately, do we feel that the technology is genuinely solving all of those pain points, or is there still work to be done?
Now, when we think about the actual act of dispatching a technician, we use the phrase at Schedule Engine, it's a little bit of science and art, right? And nothing can replace the institutional knowledge that a dispatcher has on their technicians and engineers they oversee. So what we really think about with online scheduling, one really cool feature that you're able to do, especially if you're booking online from a smartphone, is attach a picture or video. Now, yes, that's a cool experience from a homeowner, but as a contracting business, why do you care? Well, you can actually see ahead of time that specific issue, right? How many people know the difference between a furnace, a heat pump, a geothermal unit, a ductless split? So when the homeowner can say, hey, Jason Heating and Cooling, you're the expert, here's exactly what I'm looking at, and provide a photo or video, the dispatcher can make sure they're sending the right technician or engineer the first time, helping avoid any dispatching inefficiencies. And past that, that actual engineer and dispatcher isn't walking in blind. If they can make sure to have the right parts, equipment stocked in their truck when they're running to that job site to help eliminate any unnecessary turn trips, we really want to focus on maximizing one-trip completion rates, which is great for the customer. We don't want to schedule back and forth return trips, and obviously very efficient for the business so they can serve more customers. So those are kind of the main pain points we see for that actual business, how online booking can help introduce day-to-day efficiencies.
Ray, I'm sure Scheduling Engine has a ton of data around the successes of contractors. Talk to us a little bit about what you guys are seeing in the data sets from your system.
Even if we just look at daily booking volume, in the States, the weather started to get warm. We're not quite into the heat of summer, but as we're getting warmer, we're seeing some of our larger contractors book upwards of 200 online appointments in one day. So when you think about the pressure, that 5 to 10 minute phone call that a CSR normally takes, answering and booking an appointment, that's a lot of time saved and pressure from the team. Another interesting statistic we found is that when you can offer online booking and even 24/7 web chat solutions to your customer base, that actually reduces the need for some of the after hours overhead that you might be regularly scheduling and putting into your budget. So we found one contractor was saving upwards of 6% on after hours costs just by offering online booking and 24/7 web chat solutions.
That's amazing. That's a really impressive saving.
Yeah, absolutely. As we think about other nice case studies and data that we've seen recently around, or one of the biggest ROI influencers for contractors comes around needing to schedule their preventative maintenance or tune-up seasonal appointments, right? For a lot of contractors, we are staffing our teams and having them dial outbound calls, calling our maintenance customers just to get their seasonal tune-up booked. And what we're finding is when you can use online booking, you can also be in the driver's seat, whether it's through text campaigns, email blasts, or even digital PDF mailers, right? You can actually link your online booking, incentivize customers to schedule their seasonal PM or tune-up, which not only, again, streamlines the process for that customer, it's saving that contractor a ton of time, because on average, we found that typically it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 manual call attempts just to book a seasonal maintenance or tune-up, which a customer's already paid for. So I know that's a big thorn in contracting businesses' sides.
Fantastic, Ray. Thank you very much for today. It's been fantastic learning some insights from you guys. I know you've got tons of experience with helping lots and lots of contractors, lots of clients schedule better. So it's been, some great insights there. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, and thanks for the Commusoft team for all you guys are doing and having me on the show today.
We talked briefly about passing the responsibility of the scheduling over to the customer. So, sending a link where they can click on a link and view the available appointments and so on. I think, there's obvious limitations of that, or hesitations, I should say, from a company passing that responsibility onto their customers, is that customers don't have a care necessarily in terms of, I'll wait until later in the day because you've got someone a bit closer. They want it done right here, right now, or as soon as possible. But I think if the technology can get to a point where it's clever enough to, suggest that the appointments that make the most sense, then I think passing that responsibility onto the customer, in a sense, could help reduce no accesses even further, because they will feel a responsibility of, I booked this in, I need to be here. I was kind of responsible for this.
100%. I think also when you look at sort of some of the technologies we use as a business, right, where we use Drift, for example, for chat, and that obviously comes with a sort of built-in meeting booking planner tool that I know you and your team use to book and schedule demos, for example, and callbacks and things like that. I think clients see that type of technology being used in the wider world, including with us, and would like that same sort of thing, or the discussion around it. But I think this presents a particularly unique challenge because, as you said, we've got to travel, they've got to go there, and it presents a challenge because not every job is the same.
So thanks for joining us for episode 3 of our Success in the Field series.
As always, feel free to share this video. And if you have any really interesting or complex scheduling problems or processes, we'd love to hear about it.